I hope that people don't look at this as me being melodramatic because this really shook me.
Literally shaking. Some new YouTube drama has unfolded, and it's been some time since I made a video, so I figured I would weigh in on the latest stupidity. A YouTube personality named Tana Mongoose? Oh right, it's Mojo. Tana Mongeau posted a video titled The N-Word, where she told a story about how a guy showed up to one of her VIP events, and while posing with her to take a picture, he supposedly put his arm around her neck and yelled, "Say nigger." She then goes on to say how she tried to get away from him and he wouldn't let go, but then managed to push him off the second time. She claims that she feared for her life and didn't know if he had a knife or a gun. It turns out the guy in question was none other than YouTuber Idubbbz, who is fairly well known for just doing whatever he wants in the name of comedy. As far as I know, these two have no connection to each other besides an incident back in December where Tana tweeted Idubbbz about a tweet he made that contained the word nigger and continued on to tell him to kill himself, because apparently that's so much better somehow. But hey, this is 2017, so of course someone captured this dramatic incident on video. Let's take a look. Huh, that's curious. He didn't have his arm around her neck at all, nor did he yell. He basically used the phrase "say nigger" as a replacement for "say cheese," and it's very likely that he did this because she called him out for it via Twitter, so he knew that it would get to her. Did he put a little too much effort into trolling her, given the fact that he apparently paid $200 to attend this VIP event? Yeah, I'd say so, but I imagine he has a video in the works about her and will no doubt recoup whatever costs he paid. Such is the life of bored, well-off YouTube personalities. I'm also not really sure why she was wearing a bra out at some VIP event. I suppose even questioning that makes me a slut-shamer, but this girl is like 17 or 18 years old, and if she's so scared of what might happen to her at these events, she really has an odd way of not drawing attention to herself. Ignoring the fact that this event was, I guess, about her fans. But this isn't an argument of, well, look what she was wearing, she deserves it, but there's absolutely a sense of personal responsibility that goes into keeping people safe that many ignore, but I digress. You know, Tana seems to really despise any use of this word. There's no way she would ever do something like use slurs.
You know you were stupid nigger, right? You know you were stupid nigger, right?
You fucking nigger! You fucking nigger!
Impression of a black girl on joining Chocolate Bunny.
Chocolate bunny!
Girl, please.
Oh wait, except she has, and it's been captured on video multiple times. Now, people are excusing her by saying, oh, she was just ignorant back then, she apologized. She said she didn't know what it means. She actually claims she thought it was used as homie or friend.
Growing up in Vegas, everybody said those words, and I didn't even know that they were considered racist at all. They were in rap songs, and I totally thought it just meant like homie or like friend, and I was like so dumb. And when I look back to those times, I regret it so much. But it's hard to be filled with regret because I was just ignorant and uninformed. My parents never said anything. No one ever told me. Until like 4 years later when people were like, hey, these are racist. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, it's in every rap song. Like, Mac Miller says it, he's white.
You fucking nigger!
Well, that certainly doesn't make sense, considering how she's clearly using the word there with an insulting tone. Now, I'm not even here to call her a racist, though she has made some questionable tweets that would make one wonder. I just find her to be a massive hypocrite, because now that she has realized how problematic she was in the past, she's making it her life's work to repent by calling out everyone else who says words she doesn't like, or at least pretends not to like so she can be on the right side of history. She's basically nailing herself to a giant black cross on behalf of all of her POC followers so that she can work really hard to stamp out inequality, because words in and of themselves apparently have the power to take people's rights away and set back humanity 200 years.
Like he's racist, like I told him what happened. I don't fuck with that. I don't want that in my show. I don't want that anywhere around me. I don't want that around anybody that I fucking care about, especially my fans. Can you kick him out? Like,
You fucking nigger!
I want any one of you. I don't want any one of my African American followers. I don't want any one of the people that subscribe to me to ever feel unequal.
You know you're a stupid nigger, right?
I know how real, like, white privilege is, you know?
You fucking nigger!
And before people leave comments about white privilege not being real, if you think that, like, I don't want supporters that think that. If you're uneducated, I would love to educate you, but if you are educated and you're like, white privilege doesn't exist, you know, fuck off. It does. It really, really does.
There's really nothing more humiliating than seeing a white girl crying on behalf of these so-called African Americans over a word. Stop acting like people should live in fear of words. It's interesting to me where these people draw their lines in the sand. She clearly thinks it's just fine to call others a cunt, so why is it that nigger is so much worse? Now, I'm sure most people have their fingers at the ready to give me a history lesson that I'm already aware of, but I'm going to say who cares? Because in spite of what Tana here thinks, no one that was a slave is still alive today. One could make the argument that they have a history with any insult. And if you're bitching on the internet over what words people are using, you're not leading a life filled with oppression.
And I hate when people say that, like, oh, like, slavery is dead, slavery is blah, blah, blah. There are still people that were once slaves that are still alive, that still walk in this country. They're human beings. You can Google it. They're 90 or something. But I mean, 90 years ago, that person was a slave to a white person.
Yes, this girl who says she wants to educate us about white privilege and racism doesn't even realize that slavery ended in 1865, and that if anyone was still alive, they'd be around 150 years old. I would say maybe she meant Jim Crow era stuff, but she actually said slaves. Maybe before you try to lecture people on history, you should have the slightest clue of what it is you're trying to talk about. And I'm no history expert myself, but then again, I never pretended to be on the internet for social status points. I get that the intent of this term is offensive, I get that it's typically based on race, but the context that people are using this word has changed, and acting like you're in fear of your life over hearing a word is quite frankly pathetic no matter who you are. Now, I'm not necessarily advocating that we all roam the streets shouting nigger at each other, but at the same time, it really irks me the way people have created this taboo where merely saying a word in any context automatically makes you a racist. It's absurd and an easy argument that requires little to no thought. Oh, someone said a word I don't like? Oh, well, we can just safely write them off as some type of ist because it's easier to do that than look at situations on a case-by-case basis and figure out the intent behind it. The more you make a word off limits, the more people are going to want to use it just to prove that they can, so you're really not doing yourselves any favors by flipping out every time you hear it. In fact, I would argue you're probably giving people the reaction that they want out of you. They want you to get riled up and cry like a wuss so they can talk about how they triggered you over a word. You're feeding right into it, and I don't really have any sympathy for that. Before someone thinks that I'm just trying to come up with some sort of excuse to say nigger freely, I personally don't even like it. I just don't like the sound of it, and I have plenty of other words at my disposal that I can use. However, during a discussion, I'm not going to pussyfoot around saying a word and replacing it with N-word just to spare a few people that can't be bothered to pay attention to context. We all know what you're getting at when you say the N-word, so at that point, you might as well just say it. If you can't figure out the difference between someone being racist and a quote, that's your own problem. I'm perfectly willing to admit that I personally find it a bit annoying when people try to tell me that I can't do something and that sometimes I'll do it just for the shock value to tick that person off and prove that I can, but that's not just in regards to a situation like this. That's how I am in general with just about any policing of my words or actions. So while I'm not fighting for the use of nigger in general, I respect people that do what they want in spite of what anyone thinks of them, within bounds of reason, of course. However, there are consequences for our words and actions, so if you're going to do that to stand on your principles, then you have to be willing to deal with whatever backlash comes along, and a lot of people, in spite of their posturing, simply aren't willing to do that. Instead, they would rather whine about censorship on privately owned platforms that aren't required to cater to them. If you're someone that finds yourself offended by words from strangers, you really need to work on your self-esteem and not take it to heart when people that don't mean anything to you call you an offensive name or say an offensive word in front of you, because you have no emotional attachment to that person. Name calling only has as much power over you as you let it. So stop being brainwashed by media and society and letting them decide what does and doesn't offend you. If the biggest problem you have is going around worrying about what words other people are using, then you really have it pretty good. What I find most annoying about this situation is that everyone just jumps on the bandwagon of the person who is pretending to be on the side of fighting for equality. Meanwhile, she can't even get her facts straight. But I guess that doesn't matter as long as you act as though your intentions are just. This is a girl acting as though she was offended to tears by a word that was used to insult a race she's not even a part of, complaining about white privilege, all while making money off of her fear and the so-called pain of the people she's speaking on behalf of. I think it's about time we stop treating people like a hive mind based on race and start focusing on individuality, because people do not simply agree with each other by extension of sharing a skin color. Tana seems like a very disingenuous and hypocritical person, and it amazes me how all the little fangirls and fanboys take her seriously. You may remember that I talked about this topic before when that Hulk Hogan tape was released where he said some unsavory things, and I said it was possible his perspective had changed and maybe we should consider giving the benefit of the doubt. I don't think that view conflicts with this situation, because she may have changed her view, but she appears to be blatantly lying about her understanding of the word given the tone and context in which she said it. If she is genuinely sorry, she's taking her personal guilt and turning it into some twisted crusade. While I don't necessarily condone the lengths Idubbbz went to prank her, I think she is far worse. This whole situation is stupid.
I'm already white privileged enough and I need to be aware of it, and I need to use my platform to do everything I can to advocate against that and to advocate for equality.
You fucking nigger.